Spermagird, the storm is working. Isn't it lovely? What may appear to even visitors to my house to be a rather large fish tank is only a 55-gallon aquarium. In fact, the glass aquarium itself can generally be had for under $100 at a local pet store. Not even a Petco. You go to Petco, you're talking $60, $70. And people don't realize the type of entertainment that exists outside of a television screen. And maybe you want a pet and you live in an apartment. Maybe you have allergies. Maybe you just don't like to have to clean up poo from your carpet. Well, maybe fish in the freshwater market generally might not appeal to you quite enough. You know, the lighting generally looks dingy. You have to clean algae off of neon plastic to get something that's exciting looking, or you can get yourself a reef tank. But reef tanks are hard, right? Reef tanks are complicated. Welcome to Easy Reefers. Well, first and foremost, we are here to listen to my dog chew his fleas. No other time during the day than when I decide to make a the dog will sit there completely silent for 5 hours straight. And then the moment I start making a broadcast, found a flake, Daddy, come get this flake. Okay, so anyway. Well, here on this channel, we invite you to join us for regular, depending on the season, live chats where we can help you. My wife and or I can both help you on here, on Facebook, on Twitter, and now on Patreon, with setting up a new aquarium, with problems with the new aquarium, with recommendations for stocking a new aquarium, with permission on whether or not you should or shouldn't buy this or that or the other. Today I was on Facebook helping somebody who has a 28-gallon BioCube, and they have a cleaner shrimp that's apparently going to be here in a week or something. I suppose maybe they've already ordered it at the local pet store. Didn't ask. But they were also wanting to rush into buying a rose bubble anemone. And I informed them, first of all, they should wait a very long time before buying a rose bubble. And second of all, not only will that cleaner shrimp compete for the iodide in the water, which is a vital component in your fish's ability to resist bacteria. So if you have something consuming iodide out of the water, you need to continue adding iodide at the appropriate amount, or the thing that needs the iodide will die and your fish could get sick. But also a cleaner shrimp and an anemone, not generally a good idea. Most of the shrimp that you see, whether it's a coral banded shrimp, peppermint shrimp, cleaner shrimp, strawberry shrimp, all the different little shrimps that you can buy for your saltwater fish tank that I know of, except for the anemone shrimp, and I don't think the pistol shrimp has the habit either. But your what's the harlequin shrimp that eats the starfish? Those three shrimp do not do this, but the proper looking shrimpy looking shrimp, they all will chase the clownfish right out of the anemone if they're not big enough, and go and just pick the fucking, and like just pull apart the anemone's stomach and pull the food right out of it while it's trying to eat, man. And it is not good for the anemone. It will make an anemone just give up on life and just sag over and die in a tank that is growing SPS. Okay? I've seen it. Oh, it has happened to me. I'm like, oh, I got aptasia. Let me get some peppermint shrimp. You know, like, oh. That was 10 years ago, but still, it's just, oh. Yeah, that was in my 30-gallon tall, which you can see featured as my background for this here channel. Oh, that was a great tank. I had purple Manipura growing in there, along with orange and a couple different types of Acropora, bird's nest, digitata, Cassillipora. Great tank. I miss that tank. Pretty much everything from Rick's Reef, the same place I got all of this coral from. And I had a blast spending about, I'd want to say, a year and a half living right by Rick's Reef while being unemployed and disabled. And I would just go hang out up there. And I would clean up his coral displays. And boy, did they need it after many years of me not visiting, apparently. Because I used to just do it when I visited. And I would go, and below his shelves, where crap would fall, there would be, you know, an easy $1,000 worth of frags, man. If I hadn't been there for a while. But instead of continuing to take them, like I would often do when I would visit out of a blue moon, just round them up and see what kind of deal he'd give me on them, kind of. When I lived over there, I would, on a daily basis, clean his power heads for him, clean his glass for him, you know, do little maintenance tasks here and there for him. And I've begun the uneducated task of fragging corals. Now, not the way you see fragging done these days, where they go and they cut the coral apart. I'm talking, there was a lot of coral in this at least 300-gallon coral sails times two. It was a double-decker. It was one on top of the other. Two giant 300-gallon long coral sail systems. Just had so much coral in there, occasionally it would fucking smash together and break apart. I mean, there was just a lot of coral in there. This guy, you know, there was him, and then there's the aquatic specialties people. There's the lady and her husband at Aquatic Specialties, and then there's Rick's. And for a retail store, you want to go to Aquatic Specialties. But for aquarium service, there was nobody better than Rick. Or excuse me, Isaacson. Isaacson. Yes, apparently the Jews are talented in reef keeping as well. And I salute them for that, because Mark Levinson has been a very valuable contribution to helping people get into the reef hobby on YouTube. And if you catch this, thanks, Mark. Tank keeping uncle. Although actually, you know, my uncles kept fish tanks. They were just never smart enough to ask for my help with them, so they all eventually shut down. But anyways, so after becoming disabled, or before becoming disabled, actually, I had spent several years in the automotive service industry, including being a parts manager for an ATV, motorcycle, and like Sea-Doos and jet skis. We sold the actual Sea-Doos, and then we sold Yamahas. And anyway, I bet you Can-Am isn't doing very well right now. Speaking of which, well, the reason I got so far advanced into the automotive business was because I had, before that, 10 years of information technology experience. And I developed, over the past 7 years, based on all of that combined experience, based on 30 years of growing up in fish stores, okay, from Houston to New Orleans, having lived in New Zealand when I was a kid, and growing up extremely fond of tide pools. Like I would just sit by them for hours and study the life in them when I was a very small child. That's why I wanted to have a reef tank when I was 7 years old, I think. Anyway, it was in 1987. So I might have been 8. Anyways, 1987, 88, around 30 freaking years ago, after living in New Zealand, I got my first 10-gallon reef tank. My dad would build fish tanks when we got back from New Zealand. Born in America. We went over there because my dad had a work contract, right? But when he got back, he built what was probably the first 60-gallon BioCube in Houston. And we built a couple really long display fish tanks. And built a sump. All in the 80s, okay? And now, after years of, being in information technology, then being in the car business, I spent the last 7 years on this plan, based on all this experience. And that was a way to financially self-sustain coastal and reef restoration. Now here's the deal. The liberals in Hollywood and the national organizations and the churches and all the king's horses and all the king's men are not gonna put our oceans back together again, my friends. But you know who can? It's the reefing community. Okay? Here's why. We understand the problem without having to Google it. Now, if you just got your first fish tank, or you're only thinking about getting a fish tank, let me explain. When dealing with a reef aquarium, you deal with the same exact thing that the ocean deals with on a regular basis. from fertilizer and livestock production runoff. Okay, that's cow poo getting washed downstream. That's fertilizer from fields getting washed downstream. Two main compounds here: nitrogen and phosphorus. Okay, nitrate, phosphate. Now these two compounds are detrimental to a reef aquarium. They are detrimental to the ocean's chemistry itself, and can cause much more than just reef ecosystems to fail. They can cause things like that wavy seagrass that you're looking at there in the background. If you can make it out, you can see it on my other videos. And pretty soon those lights will be ramping up here. See, what happens is it throws the mineral balance in the water off and causes the calcium, not just in corals but also in oxygen producing plants, to get weak, and causes their skin to become susceptible to overgrowth with hair algae. And that eventually leads to algae blooms, which leads to cyanobacteria blooms. And if you don't know what a cyanobacteria bloom is, people often think that the colored water, when it goes red, is a type of algae. They say it sometimes mistakenly, calling it a type of algae. But it's actually a type of bacteria. Okay? And the reason why that's important as far as distinction goes is because bacteria doesn't produce oxygen. Cyanobacteria is what it's called, actually consumes oxygen at a rapid rate. And us reef hobbyists have a unique understanding of how that process works. And conveniently enough, we all actually have an experiment in our living rooms or bedrooms or somewhere in our households where we can explain and tell friends that we know firsthand from experience that this is what is happening to our oceans. We don't need to Google it. We don't need to be told it. We don't need a political organization to back us up. All we need to do is realize the potential that we have as an amateur scientific community, because that's what reef hobbyists are. Every single reef hobbyist, unless you're paying someone to take care of everything for you, you are an amateur scientist. And if you participate in a group like Easy Reefers or Bayou Reef Keeping or one of the many websites like Reef to Reef, you are participating in an independent research community, much like a group of astrologers. They can spot an asteroid that could destroy all life on Earth. Well, guess what? We can spot the chemical reaction that would do the same. Now, here off the coast of Louisiana, in the Gulf of Mexico, we have one of the largest cyanobacterial dead zones on the planet. And much like one of those red lakes in the middle of nowhere in Africa, this dead zone will make a bird just drop right into it because it's sucking oxygen out of the air. Now, if we continue to fail to address this problem, you can think of the Gulf of Mexico as a microcosm of what will happen eventually, and I mean in the near term, in the next 5 to 15 years tops, to the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The difference being scale and scope. If there is a rotational area that winds up getting tipped chemically to the point where it starts to bloom cyanobacteria, and it's already getting there as the result of being basically inundated with trash, well, add a little fertilizer to that mix and you've got cyanobacteria. It could seriously deplete the oxygen level of this entire planet. And, well, let me just put it this way. It's a short path to looking just like Venus. But there is something we can do. And the past 7 years, I've been trying to plan out exactly that. Now, here in central Louisiana, I'm located just north of the capital, Baton Rouge. And there is, as the result of many different estuaries that contribute eventually to the Mississippi River, some rather nice water sources here. I am sort of parallel with the chemical industrial complex on the Mississippi River, and in between two unpolluted streams, and most of the land around here is swamp, and it's a flood zone, but there's a lot of flood zones, and a lot of places can be flood zones that don't even know it. And rather than giving up on this little flood zone of mine, I decided to let it shine. And I've designed an entire business to support a charity that will provide mangroves and education and promote this idea that coastal restoration needs to be taken up by reefing hobbyists. Okay? That's what this Easy Reefers channel is about. That's what this Easy Reefers charity is going to be about. And the Easy Reefers store is going to be selling saltwater aquariums, supplies, and livestock in order to support that charity. And it is going to be growing its own fish and using the nitrogen and phosphates produced as a byproduct of that process to grow mangroves to be planted on the coast of Louisiana to help protect our coastline. Now, as you can see, this diagram here is only really viewable on a large screen, so feel free to download the YouTube app on your PlayStation or other console, and you should be able to get this on a 32-inch TV and be able to read most of it. But what it explains is that this is going to be a combination educational display and active researching aquarium here in Zachary, Louisiana, that is going to focus on Gulf Atlantic species. That's why I'm calling it Gaia, the Gulf Atlantic Interactive Educational Aquarium. And it's going to be housed in this, a flood-proof building design. This design is also going to be self-cooling, largely self-lighting, and extremely resistant to all forms of, bad storms. Just any flash flood, major wind event, nothing is really going to phase this building. And for the price in materials and labor, there simply cannot be a better design. Okay? And if I did not meet that objective, I would have never found any kind of confidence in these, in this plan in general, or in designs like these as well. Now, see, what you're looking at here are variations of the design that can be used in different ways, including extreme aquaponic culturing, massive scale multi-trophic fresh and saltwater aquaculture. That also includes aquaponics to create a net positive result on the environment, not just a zero impact system. This here, through use of cleverly arranged pulleys that avoid the need for hydraulic harvesting cranes. This is a 0+1 environmental impact. This will actually be cleaning water more than it pollutes. And it can be configured for both fresh and saltwater applications. Now, the details are, of course, private and available only to Reefer Madness members on Patreon. But if you want to see this happen, if you want to see the world be able to adapt this technology, every little bit helps. So I've added a $7 membership. I have a $42 membership, which gives you free access or full access to me to help you set up your own fish tank or whatever it is I can help you with, of course. But if you want a stake in this, okay, I'm basically offering a layaway plan, a payment plan, in order to not only collect investment, but to provide some of my fellow YouTubers with the opportunity to become the advisory council of this establishment that is going to create these buildings. Now, if I can draw your attention to the bottom figure here, this explains not how the foundation works. I have drawn in a more expensive composite version that I'm sure anybody could figure out, but my thing is I figure out the cheapest way to do things. I've been very poor for a very long time, and I'm very good at it. Okay, so but I have a very inexpensive way of constructing this type of structure that can float indefinitely as though it were a houseboat. It resists massive amounts of lateral force through both design and reinforcement. It has a design that actually increases the amount of strength of the structure with the amount of stress that is put on the structure. That includes during both high winds and high water movement. And also, in the event of some unforeseeable catastrophic flood, it automatically converts itself into a boat. This boat is capable of withstanding the impact of any would-be house or other object that is floating in the vicinity. Because if you if you've seen the footage from the 2011 tsunami, for instance, that is one of the big things that kind of inspired these designs, along with my late grandmother's house that became kind of famous because you could see it from the highway if you were driving to New Orleans from the east. The Pyramid House. And basically, after watching just the houses smashing into each other during the 2011 tsunami, I decided, what if we built our houses more like mini arks? Now the thing is, it's 2018, people. I got this silly little box here. I got this silly little kitten here making weird noises and making me think like something's falling out of my fish tank. You can see her right at my feet there. With this silly little kitten here. But anyways, I got this phone that's also a powerful video editing device, that's also a server manager and a web browser and a game machine and GPS automatically gives directions to me if I'm lost. That drive themselves. We've got fuel efficiencies reaching 40 miles per gallon combined. We're making progress as a technological society. And politics aside, okay, this is what I think Reefers can accomplish. Okay? Environmental activism that's just about the environment, and it's not complaining about what businesses are doing. Just saying, hey, if they're doing this, we need to do this to fix it. Because here's the deal. Anybody who services fish tanks, and Mark Levinson know this, Rick knew this, anybody who services fish tanks know this. No matter how much your client wants to feed their fish, wants to overpollute their system, wants to overpopulate their system, you can design a system that can compensate for it. You can design a system that can absorb and extract whatever level within reason that customer can provide. If we can do that, then we can do this. Instead of producing food that pollutes, instead of making the goal reducing the amount of pollution that we produce as a byproduct of producing food, instead of even eliminating it, why don't we make the food production process itself? Why don't we make the goal to have it purify water instead of polluting it? Instead of just being neutral, supposedly neutral. Why don't we have aquaculture designed to go in dirty streams that can have an output of clean water? Now, this isn't going to work in something like the Mississippi River, but when it comes to a upstream estuary, just like I'm perfectly positioned in more ways than one. I'll get into that in just a second. I'm perfectly positioned geographically as far as these estuary goes in this town, and many different land purchases that I have my eyes on, many different land slices that are available right now that would also be suitable retail locations, have suitable proximity to this river that I could test the effects and get a rate of reduction and see how much aquaponic do you have to use to have that net positive impact. But to do that, you need a way to fund it. Now, I am not somebody who thinks that progress needs to rely on government assistance or charity. Okay? I believe that there's a way to make anything worth doing profitable. Okay? And that means self-sustaining at the very least. That means if this charity has something to do, if this charity has a product, that product can be sold. That product can be packaged. That product can be delivered. Okay? And if that charity is environmental change, you know, if you want to save the trees, you'd be selling tree equipment. You need to be selling gardening stuff. You need to be selling stuff that makes people appreciate nature in that way. And you put your charity's logo all over that. People get reminded on a regular basis. You know, it's not just about my garden. It's about nature's garden. Well, you want to save the ocean. People can't just plant an ocean, but they can buy a fish tank. So this whole conglomerate I'm proposing, it's not just about coastal restoration. It's not about building sustainable housing and hospitals and food-producing structures for disaster-prone areas. It's about finding a way to pay for all of that. Okay, now in phase 1 in this facility right here in Zachary, Louisiana, I have a unique opportunity where there is no other saltwater store. For 25 miles. In that 25-mile radius, there is a total of 280 to 300,000 people. Hello? That depends on whether you want to count the people that would probably still go to reef coral, just because it's closer to them. But let me just say this. Reef coral is not a beginner-friendly store. Reef coral caters to people with fish tanks that they pay reef coral to take care of, basically. And, you know, I think if they were next door, I could compete with them. But I prefer to be at a distance from them because I prefer to be friends with them. And I am friends with them. They've sold my clownfish. If you've bought clownfish in the Baton Rouge area in the past couple of years, some of the Truperculas that were for sale were mine. Well, anyways. So this store here is going to have an easy situation as far as profit expectation goes. Then it's going to be an additionally beneficial situation because of the hybrid aspect of this business model. And that works in two ways. One is that there's going to be essentially an in-house wholesaler. We're going to be producing our own livestock. It's not going to be all the livestock we sell because we want to bring a variety to customers, but we're going to be focusing almost exclusively on locally, tank raised, tank bred, aquacultured marine fish. We're not going to be selling probably anything except for just a couple of different fish that we have, but none of the coral, none of the invertebrates are going to be coming from the ocean that we sell on a regular basis. If there's good deals on stuff in large supply, depending on what it is, if I've got a lot of experience with it and I know it's safe for beginners, I might get something from the wild. But I want to demonstrate how far the aquaculture business as a whole has come. And I want to bring that to the Zachary area because this is the highest per capita income area in Louisiana. This is the highest per capita credit rated area in Louisiana. And these people like to make their houses look nice around here. I mean, that's just how it is. People's houses around here are pretty impressive. And there's a lot of new developments going up. There's a lot of existing construction happening. There's a lot of opportunities for big aquariums to be installed. There's a lot of opportunity for small aquariums to be sold. And that is going to be able to, combined with the increased margins from the in-house wholesaler, provide Easy Reefers as a private investment of the Easy Reefers Coastal Restoration Club, with an ample profit margin. And we're going to be able to offer educational internships for mariculturalists who want to stay in Louisiana. We're going to offer fish tanks for veterans. We're going to offer fish tank service for people who have fish tanks and wind up disabled. And Mark Levinson, if you wind up catching this, man, that's in honor of you and me. But it inspires me that you're still able to do that after what happened to you. I don't know if I could consider myself reliable to do aquarium service, which is why I'm going to be focusing on the breeding side. But we're going to be having service as soon as I get a trainee. So anyways, get some coffee to drink here. The whole arrangement here is going to work, and what makes this investment extremely viable is that once Easy Reefers becomes a official charity, that is, once you show your support, people, okay, I can register with the state and with the IRS. Then there is this particular kind of register for contracts type thing, government website, and I have to register with them as an NPO. and then I get this identification number, and then I take that identification number over to the Wildlife and Fisheries, and the Wildlife and Fisheries is looking for some kind of way to financially self-sustain coastal restoration and educational efforts. I know somebody with a plan for that, don't you? When I look on this grant, there's a point system, and there's 16 total points, and a couple of them have to do with birds. I have 11 out of 16 points. I look at the grant recipients of the past couple years. They had 5 or 6. Okay? Let's get this done, people. This grant awards $2 million per year for coastal restoration in Louisiana. Typical grant amounts per individual applicant range between $50,000 and $150,000, awarded annually on a as needed basis, basically. That doesn't go to the private investment that you're making. That gives Easy Reefers Coastal Restoration Club the capital to also invest in the Easy Reefers retail store. Okay. Now that's a combined investment, because Easy Reefers is then going to turn around and start a company called Acadian Mariculture. That's at least at this point my theory on how that's going to go. But no, actually, wait. I think I had decided just to incorporate Acadian Mariculture independently by myself and just make that like me, because I'm going to be the one doing all the work. And then keeping Easy Reefers and Easy Reefers together, and keeping Acadian Mariculture as a separate entity owned by the same people. So making it a sister entity. But anyways. Easy Reefers is the conduit to invest in Paragon. Now, what I've promised on the $420 a month layaway investment plan is 0.7% of Easy Reefers and 0.7% of the construction company that's going to be building all of these. Okay. Now again, these buildings range between a shed that could, I'm kind of overlapping because this is my second live stream I've done tonight. I did one early on Facebook, and I don't want to tell stories twice, but while I was designing these buildings a couple years ago, we had the Great Flood of 2016, and around the corner from here there was a guy who spent 15 years restoring a 1967 Corvette 427 Stingray. And he literally finished it the week before the flood came. And I didn't have them buildings ready for him. I wish I could have had this done 10 years ago, and people would have saved millions of dollars in property damage. So to get this done, I'm trying, from a weak personal position. I don't have my own money to get this started myself. I don't have money to pay my bills. I'm a fucking cripple. And due to recent political activities, I've wasted a lot of time trying to make money in ways that were just doomed to failure. And I'm willing to move on from all of that if I can basically just fix the world without worrying about the people in it. Okay? And this is the plan on how to do that, So you get 0.7% of the future Paragon development. Now, if somebody steals a name from me, I have a backup name that's better. But otherwise, I'll save that name for the luxury home exclusive division. Because there's gonna be a way for this for-profit construction company to have the profit margin to donate actual physical buildings, in addition to being contracted out by international charity organizations, which we're going to be pushing for. And I've got the connections to get us there, people. Okay, I'm working it. I'm working it every day, all day. I'm working it. And it's looking good. I just need the money. I just need the show of public support, according to the document that I read. I need to be able to prove that people have been contributing money to this. They don't even say how much. I just need to be, if you can only do the $7, do the $7. If you do the $47, do the $42. If you want a stake in this, if you want to see it happen sooner and get a return on your investment of 31% after 10 years plus residuals after that. That's according to my projections, and I'd be happy to show them to you. $420 a month, $400 of which goes to me. The rest goes to Patreon for the processing fee. But let me just say this, Patreon and YouTube and Google seem to be in quite cahoots together, so making them happy will probably help me get more views, which will help business in the long term. So, let's just pay the people. That's what I'm saying. So, I'd estimated about, I think it was a 5-year or 7-year recoup, and then 9-year, you're at 30%, and then 10 years it keeps on going up above that. But I lowered that by doubling a couple of the years instead of going with the median value, to keep it just kind of like a lower, more conservative projection. So that's where I got the 31 at 10 years. Now, as far as investments goes, not very good. Okay? That's a hell of a lot better than a lot of the bonds that you can take out, but as far as charity goes, you can't do any better. Now, I can't count that as a charitable, tax-deductible thing. But were you listening? I mean, to me, oxygen is important. It gives me something to mix with my cigarette smoke. The oceans produce more of the oxygen that we breathe than the trees on land do. That's because there is more plant matter photosynthesizing on an ongoing basis in the ocean than there could ever be on land. That's because the ocean takes up 3 times more area. Now, if we keep polluting our top-off water into the ocean. If we keep dumping crap into the fresh water that compensates for the evaporation that the oceans experience. I mean, this perfectly balanced system that we just happen to have. I don't know who put it here for us, but they must have been a nice guy. Or girl. But if we don't start taking care of it, the ocean's going to go bad. And then a lot of places on land are going to be way too hot for trees to be growing. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. All these effects are just going to feed into each other, and it's going to just increase the rate at which it gets worse. And that's, well, go outside tomorrow. Tell me how it's happening. Because 2 years ago we lost about half the corals. And if we're losing half the corals, we're losing some of the nice plants out there too. The corals are the warning. The corals are what's different. They're that painting that God put there to let you know, hey, you've gone too far and you need to take care of some stuff. Well, this plan is bigger than me. That's why I just want to run the little fish store. I'm actually talking to some people about taking the helm of Paragon construction or development or whatever it winds up being called. And doing that at the level it deserves to be done at. And, well, let me just put it this way. If I give you the $420 investor/member, you get other freebies besides that. 0.7% of that company there at the bottom, you might wind up with an income of over $100,000 a year. Okay? Do the math on, the income of major construction companies. $20 million a year. Do the math on that. 0.7% of $20 million a year. That's $140,000 a year. So, maybe not the best investment, but it's a hell of a lottery ticket. Alright, so anyways, thanks for watching, whoever happens to see this in the future. Doesn't seem like anybody was awake while I was broadcasting just now. But I'm going to be linking this on Patreon for anybody who's wondering about what this company is all about. I hope I cleared things up for you if you were interested in. And if you could, please give me a like here on YouTube and make sure you're subscribed. You can go and click the notification bell, and perhaps you'll actually get notified of future broadcasts, but that hasn't been really working so much lately. But anyways, future reference, when people actually join me, we have the chats, and always here to help people out with any kind of fish tank or other kind of problems. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, whoever winds up making it to this point. You're a good person, despite what they say about you. Bye-bye!
deep down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door. The way you treated me